Welcome back to Tech Tuesday. I am your host, Jordan Evans. Just another great week of another great conversation. I'm happy to start off your week. If your week goes from Tuesday to Tuesday, like mine does, this is the start of my week. I'm super excited to have on another guest to talk about another awesome solution for tech. For another tech solution for senior living. Today we have on Ahmed. Ahmed is the CEO and founder of Witlingo, and we're going to talk about AI. Now, AI is something that's been with us apparently for a very long time, um, but I think we're most familiar with it in ChatGPT and other what I understand to be generative AI solutions. I don't know a lot about AI, and I think a lot of you don't either. And if you're like me, you're like, I've heard of AI, and when I think of AI, I think of that Will Smith movie. Um, Tune in. So, without further ado, Ahmed,
Hi, Jordan. Thanks for having
thank
me.
you. Thank you so much for joining us. So Ahmed, you run a company called Witlingo, and it is a. Tell us more, a little bit more about Witlingo.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I watched a few episodes in preparation for this of your show, and you do great work. So, congratulations on this project and the output. I am a technology person. Have been all my life. Started as an engineer, meaning coding way back in the 90s. um, Always been in artificial intelligence, and so all of my jobs have been in AI, focused mainly. So AI is a vast world, but focused mainly on speech recognition, right? Meaning a person speaks, and then a system takes that speech and turns it into text, okay? And then also natural language, which is to take that text and turn it into meaning. So,
Mm,
for example, when you say turn off the light, there is a wave that comes out of your mouth that needs to be turned into text. The text then is into an action given the context, right? So it goes and turns off the light, right? So that's the kind of artificial intelligence I've been sort of living in for the last 20 plus years. My company, specifically to answer your question, is called Witlingo. We're based just outside of DC in McLean, Virginia. And our focus, we started in 2016. I launched the company in 2016. Before that, I was in big companies. The last one I was before I launched this was Amazon, where we worked on the Amazon Alexa, on the Amazon Echo. And I worked there and launched what is called the smart home, being able to control hardware by talking to Alexa. And then after that, launched Witlingo 2016. And initially, it was very focused on voice assistants, um, and specifically voice assistants for seniors, because at Amazon, I was at Amazon, a lot of research showed that the average age of adoption of this new cutting edge technology, which was the far field smart speaker, it's like 10 years ago already. Back then, it was really cutting edge. The average age of the person who was adopting the technology was 50, which is totally the opposite of what usually happens in cutting edge tech. Usually, it's folks who are young who want to try new things. But not surprisingly, the reason why, and that's the average, right? The average age was around 50, is because it solved some problems that seniors, as we get older, have, meaning the smartphone, we're not able to see it as well, right? We can't, we forgot where it is, right? And this is all of us who become, as we get older, we start suffering and from those kinds of conditions. And being able to mobility, being able to even touch, and so forth. So being able to just speak, right, was and is very empowering. Um, so instead of asking somebody to go and turn on the stereo and play some music and play this song for them, whatever, they can just ask for it, right? So it was a very empowering technology. And so since I was and continue to be in that space, meaning um, it's called human language technology, right? Which
mm,
encompasses voice as well as natural language. that sort of space, that use case, constellation of problems was very compelling. And so, since I evolved from being a technology to a product manager, and a product manager is always looking for how to deliver solutions that solve real problems, right? Which is in contrast to engineering, which is to build cool things, right? Anyway, so when we launched the company, we were focused on the Alexa and on smart speakers and so forth. But then we converged towards um, Alexa being one of the sets of solutions that we offer. And in a nutshell, what we offer is a platform that enables the staff within an assisted living community to communicate effectively with the residents in the community, given all the constraints and given all the friction points that exist usually or are prevalent in senior living communities, right? So, for example, being perhaps not being able to read text as comfortably as listening to a piece of information, right? So when somebody logs in, they can send a notification to all the members of the community, and then those who want to receive it as a text can receive it as a text. Those who want to receive it as a phone call or an Alexa notification can receive it such. And also, the other thing that was very interesting to me as I learned more about the world of getting older, right, is that if English is not your native language, as you get older, and I'm noticing this in myself, as you get older, you revert a little bit to your native language, your mother
Hmm.
tongue, right? Your mother tongue becomes you become much more comfortable with it. So maybe start listening to music that you used to when you grew up back in the old country, let's say. And a good percentage of the folks who are living in these communities, English is not their first language or their mother tongue or their native. And so being able to receive all this information in the language they're most comfortable with is one of the things that we solved for and include in our offering. But that's sort of
That's amazing.
in more than a nutshell, more than a nutshell, but that's sort of about me and about the company and what we do in this
I
space.
I I appreciate that. There's so much even in that, and we'll have to have you come on and talk about this interface and how important it is to just an accessibility. And I've been toying around the idea of doing an episode around accessibility and environmental um, tech that supports your environmental changes or you as you age in your environment. Um,
Yep.
so let's talk more about AI. So first, what is artificial intelligence? Because that thing you described earlier, which is the human interface,
Human
the
language
voice,
technology. Yeah.
that is what we typically assume to be AI. Like when I think of AI, I think of Alexa. Hoping
Yeah.
she's not listening. But that's what I think of when AI. So what is AI?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, right? What is AI? So, artificial intelligence, usually that concept is used in distinction from human intelligence, right? But there is intelligence in the sense that um, we perceive the action of something that is not human that is not human or is not biological as intelligent if it is able to solve problems that are complex and that are not predetermined, right? So, for example, we don't consider a calculator to be AI. Right? Calculator is sort of it is artificial intelligence in that it performs a task that a human being can, but it does it much better in a completely different way, and sort of it's very automatic. It does only one specific thing, which is to calculate, right? So that is the least exciting of the artificial intelligences out there. um, but artificial intelligence is usually meant to convey intelligence that reacts to its environment with a level of complexity that renders its behavior um, non-deterministic almost, right? It's like you can't predict it. Like the less predictable an intelligence is, the more intelligent it is to be. So that's why they say the people who are smartest are usually very emotional. you know,
Mm.
so there's a level of complexity that makes the machine or the IT that you're looking at behave in a way where it solves problems, but you can't tell really how it did it, right? How did it
Mm.
solve it? You can't pin down the algorithm, right? Anyway, so in terms of the evolution of AI at a very high level, when we started, meaning when the space, when the engineers started solving um, and getting computers to think, right? They started with a very rule-based methodology, right? So how do we solve search, right? So you have many articles that that you have, and you want to find articles that have certain um, you know content, right? So how would you do that in a rule based kind of a way of solving that? Is you have like you tag the articles. You have an algorithm that goes and scores each one of these articles, and then there's a tree, and then it end up with three or four articles, right? It's very very rule based, right? um and this happened, let me just close this. Is it my Skype or is it your Skype? Okay. um and the problem with that, and the reason why AI has been underperforming for the longest time, is because building rules, solving problems by building rules is very human intensive. You have the engineer or the person who knows the domain. You have to come up with all the rules. You have to abstract, and you have to come up with the rules. If this happens and that happens, if these are the conditions, and so you have to explicitly, right, come up with these rules. Um,
Right.
and that's very laborious, right? So, for example, in the space where I've been working all my life, really in AI, is natural language and speech recognition. Trying to solve the let's call it the natural language processing problem by creating rules is almost impossible to solve, because how would you extract the meaning of something like what is that that is like uh, uh, fruit flies, something like that. I'm not remembering the exact phrase, but that can have three or four meanings, right? Three or four meanings that depend completely on the context of the utterance, and then context is almost infinite, right, in terms of the parameters, right? And so rule based was very effective and continues to be effective in very well defined domains, right? Let's say finance, right, where you have rules, or taxation, right?
Yeah.
If you know exactly the rules, and it's very it's very fleshed out and so forth, then you can build what is called, was called back then, an expert system, that knows the rules and can give you answers, like for example medical conditions, right, symptoms, right? We've had that for quite a while, for 20 years almost, like, all right, where you provide the symptoms, and it gives you the potential disease that you may be suffering from, right? So
Right.
now where we are today is what people mean by AI today is they mean AI that is not rule based, that is data driven, right? Where you collect tons and tons and tons and tons of data, and you have created sort of an engine that knows how to abstract and how to find correlations between things, between parameters, between attributes, right? And there's a lot of human labor actually in taking the data and tagging it, and saying this sound means is this, and this sound is that. And so you teach it by providing it examples, all right? And then you let it abstract, right? You let it detect correlations. So for example, in the case of the disease, right, instead of saying if you have this and that, then you have this disease, you provide it with lots of data, and you provide data about the patient, and then it abstracts and says, having seen 1 million data points about folks suffering from this condition, I can tell you that here are the correlations or the causes. And sometimes what you get is totally surprising. Sometimes it complies with your rules, right? But sort of that at the high level, that's what the AI of today and the AI that we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or 40 years ago, like for example, chess, right? That's AI, but that's rule based AI. Rule based in the sense
Mm.
that it just knows the rules, and searches for the various scenarios and says, I'm going to make this move next. Today, it does it in a completely different way. And so, and the reason why we are here today is because for the last, I don't know, 20 years plus, given that the internet was born, we've been able to collect data, right? Data from documents, data from people, data from email, data from whatever, right? Trillions and trillions of documents that we've been able to, to have available. And there is controversy, obviously, as to how this can be
How that
used,
data gets collected.
the data is
So
so forth. Yeah,
let me help us. So for the data, the AI that we had before was rule based. It followed the rules, like playing chess. I mean, it did do something that you may not have thought it would do, but it's still following the rule. And we were playing chess with a robot or checkers with a robot like 20 years ago,
yeah.
25 years ago.
Hmm.
But the data, the AI that we have now is now data based and not rule based. So now it's pulling and looking at millions and millions of data points and looking for trends and looking for
Exactly.
um, patterns. And now it is doing this. So that is what we're calling. That is what is called generative AI.
Well, that's AI. Let's call it AI 2.0. Okay, AI 2.0 is where it's really heavy with data. The difference between the two is an action or or some kind of a conclusion that was reached using the 1.0. Somebody who built the system can go back and retrace and explain to you how. They can explain to you how it got there. In 2.0 they cannot. It's impossible. They don't know how it get to that sort of a black box. Right, it's a totally black box, isn't it? It's like that's why people are saying, well, are we creating sort of pseudo human beings? Because I don't know what you're gonna do. I know who you are and your character, but can't predict, what you are going to do. So that's one sort of basic difference between the two. One is you can explain, right? And the second one is almost unexplainable, right? In terms of what is generative AI, generative AI is basically using AI, right? uh, in conjunction with a human being. That's what people forget, right? It's not just a box out there. It's a human being
Right.
in conjunction with the AI generating new things, generating new text, generating new images, right? And then prompting it and saying it. I want the text to be softer. I want it to be longer. Use less less formal language. Make it sound a little bit strong at the beginning and soften at the end. So it's sort of a dialectic between the person who is using the AI and the AI, right? So that's generative AI is not an AI that exists in its own right. Generative AI is AI that in coordination and in partnership with a human being is able to create something magical, right? So for example, when you see those paintings, or let's say, wow, that's generative AI. No, that's an artist, right? That's an artist who's using a tool, just like any other artist uses a tool to create something. And when you see that image, it was created by someone actively, right? Through, and that's why your audience should know about the emergence of this new job, right? Called prompt engineering, right? And a prompt engineer. So a prompt
Prompt engineering.
prompt engineering. So a prompt engineer is someone who knows how to talk, how to engage, how to chat, how to sort of chisel, right? How to engage the AI to create something interesting. And so embedded in whatever is the output is the person, right? And that's something that people don't really understand is it's not no AI is going to take over the world, right? For example, somebody, let's say a doctor, and they have a patient, right? The doctor knows the patient in a way that the human knows a human, right? They can see their expressions, they can hear their voice, they can feel their emotion, they can ask them questions. So they have a level of empathy that they can then use to engage with the AI to say, they seem to feel like this and all like that, and they told me this last week, and now they're saying this. And so someone is using this very powerful tool in the context of solving human problems, right? um, as opposed to the misconception out there is that, you know AI does things on its own, right? You push a button. No, you don't push a button. If you push a button, you're gonna get crap, right? And that crap is going to be useless. And then you learn your lesson. And next time you put in a lot more effort to create something that is yours, where it really is a tool. It being generative AI is a tool. Now, I think when we were talking off stage, I mentioned the concept of AI has always been with us, and let me just dip into that. When we say AI, whether it's AI 2.0, 1.0, we're talking about computers, right? We're talking about computers doing things for us. But artificial intelligence has existed for thousands of years in the following sense. Constitutions are AIs, a constitution. A body of laws are AI, is AI. It is a bureaucracy is an AI. Right? These things exist without they exist in their own rights, right? So the American bureaucracy has people in it, and sometimes they cannot act in this way, right, or that way because of the rules, or because of the culture, or because of whatever it may be. And so that's why, for example, political regimes go out of control, right? You go out of control. It's like a machine that went out of control because you built a mechanism, you built a mechanism and pressures and associations and alliances and so forth, so that at some point there are humans who are in there are not real. Not one person is able to control the situation. Not even the dictator, right, who has to deal with the army and who has to deal with all those folks. So we have always been in the business of building intelligences that are artificial, that um, that sort of transcend us as human beings. Meaning a constitution exists and has existed, for example, for the last 200 plus years in the United States, right? That constitution has been interpreted and used, right? And has created constraints upon what we do and what we can do, right? And people have been using the constitution and amendments in different ways, right? So this dialectic between artificial intelligence in that, writ large, and us has always been with us. And so when people say, well, how are we going to deal with this generative AI? I tell them, well, it's not a new problem. It's an old problem. How do we solve a political system that doesn't run amok? Well, transparency, right? Accountability, um, collective decision making. You cannot. I mean, if you give an AI to three people, and something very bad happens, it's not because of the AI or those three people. It's because of the decision to give them, decision to make, decisions for us. I'm using the word three times there. So whenever we have this artificial intelligence, whether it was created thousands of years ago or whether it's now, it's really important not to think that it's a new challenge, a new problem. It is the old problem of a powerful machine that has intelligence in it that we gave it, whether directly or indirectly, in terms of the data, and that can enable us to do a lot of very, very important things like civilization, right? Like ensuring that we don't have a lawless society, but at the same time, it can be abused, and it can be abused only if you give control of that intelligence to a small number of people. And the smaller the number of people, the more abuse and the more danger for disaster. So hopefully that makes sense a little bit.
That does make a lot of sense. On a more practical level, um, you talked about the idea of this prompt engineer. And so, kind of putting a lot of these things together, the accountability part of someone to know how to use this tool. Um, I use the analogy of the hammer as for tools and accountability all the time. You can give someone a hammer, but if you don't teach them what to use the hammer for, people will think of and create all these different ways to use a hammer.
Hmm.
None of them may be the right way that it was intended, the intended use of the hammer. And so you give someone AI, and people are doing all kinds of crazy things, and it really is just using, or do you just give someone specifically generative AI? And now we're getting into conversations of people recreating other people's works. And or one conversation we had with a colleague recently is it's making people lazy. But is it making people lazy, or are people not accountable with knowing or accountable for using the tool? And meaning, is there not enough information out there on how to create an input? Like you can say, hey, I need you to create this thing, and you give some supportive work, but one thing that someone else told me is ask you have to ask to you have to tell the system to ask for clarifying information.
Yeah, yeah,
So to talk more about how we, and specifically in senior living, how, or even in technology, how we use this tool, and be more accountable for using the tool.
yeah. Well, I mean, before, let's say, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, before there was generative AI, and people were not able to go and ask the thing to say, well, give me an article that talks about X, Y, and Z, and then they would get it and they copy and paste and they post it, right? Before that, what did they do? What did they do all day long? Do you think that they created something new? I've read millions, not millions, but thousands, and of these articles, and they all look the same. They all sound the same, right? So it's laziness, except that it's the same kind of laziness, right? Except that the first one took 8 hours to do, the second one took 1 hour to do, right? There was no creation. Seriously, right? So now with this tool, and I use it all the time. I'm doing a lot more work than before because I use it to not do the stupid stuff, right? Not to do the spell checking, and not to do the sentence reconstruction, not to do those things. I have an idea, right? And I am engaged very deeply with this AI to help me get it out. And at some point, what happens usually is I'm back and forth. At some point, I know where I'm going to go. I throw it and I just write because I want my voice to be my voice, right? So in terms of accountability, the question is, how were the people who were generating crap, before, and it was a lot of crap and continues to be generated even without the AI? How do we make how would we have made those folks generated good articles? How? Right? You would fire them and say, this is bad stuff, right? I'm gonna generate, go learn, go read some stuff, give me some new ideas, right? And so some people rise and some people don't, right? Here, it's going to be the same thing. You have a tool, right? If you're going to create junk with it, right? Junk, for example, where it's not factual, where it's not coherent, where it's clear, it's robotic, it doesn't have a voice, it doesn't have the voice of the company in it, right? Then you're not going to be promoted. You're not going to go anywhere, right? You're going to do your things fast, and you're going to be fired fast, in a way, right? Right. So it's a tool that allows you to deliver excellence if you are driven to deliver excellence. And if you are somebody who wants to deliver excellence, you deliver more excellence with this tool, right, than otherwise. That's it. It's, do you want, are you trained to deliver something that you're proud of? Do you have that in you? If you have that in you, then you're not going to borrow the voice of the AI. You're not going to create something that is platitudinal, right? If you have that in you and you want to be a professional, you want to distinguish yourself, you're going to use this tool in the right way, and you'll figure it out how to use it in the right way. If you care about what you're doing, this tool will surface the people who don't give a shit. I'm sorry, people who don't care about their job. It will show them very quickly that these people are just using this tool because they want to get through the day and get a paycheck. We'll find them out quickly. The people who deliver excellence, now they can deliver excellence, right? And we can smell excellence when we see it. It's an essay that gives you something new and makes you think. And it's clearly written, not by a bot. And no bot ever is going to replace a human being, no matter what anybody tells you, right? Now, I'm going to spend 1 minute on the following. There are issues such as folks using AI to emulate other people's voices, and then getting folks like for in the elderly community to to think it's their son, their daughter, or somebody that they know, and then swindle them. Okay. Now the question is, this has always been with us, this swindling of the elders, right? It's always been with us. It's just another way of doing it, right? Is it an argument against generative AI? No, it's not. Of course it's not, right? How do we prevent that? You know what? Technology is, in fact, I have friends who are working, or in fact have delivered solutions that can detect that this is an AI. So, all right, so, if this becomes a real problem, right, within your package or your phone delivery package, you'll have a light that says, this is not a real person, right? Because AI is simulation, and there's AI that goes beyond the AI that knows that this AI It's not a human being, right? If you train an AI to say, look at this, it sounds to a human being exactly the same as this, but they're not the same. Please go ahead and detect the difference between the two, right? A solution will emerge, right? So the interesting thing is the more we push, the more cutting edge technology becomes, the more cutting edge, if it becomes threatening, the more cutting edge the solution to the threat become, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
Like cybersecurity. Security is, we have people who want to go and create malware and and so forth, right? We have now software that tries to counter it. And remember the initial point that I made. The threat is not in the technology, but in concentration of power, right? We saw that happen with CrowdStrike just 3 days ago, right? What was the problem there? The problem was a monopoly by Microsoft and a monopoly by crowdsource, a double monopoly that caused the whole world to shut down for a little while. Now, imagine a world where you don't have a monopoly by Microsoft, where everybody, you have 20 or 30 of these players out there. And instead of one crowd strike, you have multiple crowd strikes. Then you will never have a situation where the AI is going to take over the world. It will take over the world only if it's concentrated, only if you have two or three companies that are in charge, and then you have bad things happen. And I think this CrowdStrike thing that happened is something that people need to really reflect upon. It's not technology; it's monopoly. That's the core of our problems. If you have distributed intelligence and you have many decision makers in the loop, then you'll be okay. If not, then it's danger, big time.
Single points of failure.
Yep.
I don't think that single points of failure is just, I think that's a leadership lesson right there. I mean, that is, if you're creating single points of failure, even with, running senior living communities with your residents, if you're creating single points of failure, then don't
Yep.
be shocked when those single links in the chain break and then everything falls apart.
Exactly. And so you have to
It
ensure.
goes in one place.
Yeah, exactly. Distribute. So there's that tension between efficiency and robustness, right? So it's cost effective to just buy one system, boom, and somebody's in charge. It's not as cost effective to have, because then you have coordination and you have to, right, and so forth. But it's a balance that needs to be struck. But for sure, the more concentrated you are in how you do things, whether it's within your staff or otherwise, then the more brittle you're gonna end up being.
Wow. This has been so great. Takeaways. Yeah, here's Ahmed's LinkedIn. Please connect with Ahmed. Excuse me, everyone. I have a cold, but I still am here learning so much. So, takeaways: AI is not new. AI has been around for a long time. It is just a system. It is a system created of rules, and now the new AI, this generative AI, is data-based. But if you're concerned that use of AI in your business, or your salesperson said, "Hey, I want to start using some AI," like, don't look at it with this dichotomous attitude. It's not good or bad. If they're doing bad work, they will continue to do bad work. And so if they're doing great work, they're going to put in the work and massage out this relationship and this connection with utilizing this tool, this connection with this tool to put out better work. And that is all it is a tool that can be used to put out better work, or it could be a tool to put out crap work that they're already putting out. I'm really interested in following Ahmed to see how you're continually using AI to
Yeah.
support senior living. We've had some conversations offline that have been amazing. So check out this guy. He's done some really cool things with AI and with human interface in senior living. Thanks so much for joining me.
You,
If you're
Jordan.
just tuning in, press the rewind, check out this episode. And if you're excited by what you've seen, we are here every Tuesday at 1:30, neither rain nor shine. See y'all.
Thank you.